This week on Head to Head, will everyone die in Episode 9?
You're listening to Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars. Begins now.
Hello, everybody. I'm Eric Vancil.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
And we're your hosts for this podcast. So we are 2 weeks away from Star Wars Celebration, everybody.
2 whole weeks.
2 weeks. So, I mean, it's amazing when you think about it, though, because I remember when it was like, what, a year away?
I know.
2 years away?
Yep.
And now we're actually, and then it's like, okay, it's January, it's coming up this year. And now we're actually 2 weeks away.
We were this close to actually going this year.
I know. You guys probably don't want us to bring that up again, but yeah, we were so close to going. And so if anybody is going, you guys should really post that on our Twitter or our Facebook at Head to Head SW, because we'd really love to hear your thoughts. And of course, we have some plans.
Yes, and also send some pictures too.
Yeah, pictures would be good. But our plans are we are going to try to do maybe a Google Hangouts or something like that that'll be on our YouTube page where we'll actually watch some of the panels in real time and talk about it. And then, of course, we're going to do not obviously this week and not next week, but the week after. So while Celebration is happening, that Monday, we're going to start doing some Celebration wrap-up episodes.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, that's going to be incredible. I'm really looking forward to the Celebration this year.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a lot of stuff that's going to be revealed, the books, of course, the trailer for Episode 9, at least the title, for Episode 9.
I would hope that we're going to get the title at least.
Yeah, so.
But we got to be getting a trailer.
Something, yeah.
And then, of course, they're going to probably show something from The Mandalorian, I imagine.
Yep, definitely.
So that's going to be cool. And of course, as it gets closer, like next week, I'm sure we'll talk about, a few more things, but
the panels and everything, yeah.
Yeah, just, keep in mind, everybody, Celebration is upon us. Well, in order to celebrate Celebration, how about we go to the Cantina and get ourselves a little drink?
I'm all for it.
All right. So what is our first topic of the Cantina?
All right, so is Star Wars ready for reincarnation?
That's an interesting one.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of, looking up some things, and
I was going to say, where'd you even get that from? I read that, and I was like, reincarnation.
Well,
All
yeah,
right, I'll just go with it and wait for the podcast. Exactly.
So, I mean, I've been on a couple of sites and reading some things, and a lot of people have mixed reviews about what could possibly happen in Episode 9.
You mean as far as like what Luke is?
Well, I mean, just as far as, we've never seen that aspect in Star Wars. We've never seen anyone come back from the dead. I mean, in a sense of physically coming back. We've seen Force
beyond
Ghosts.
the Force Ghost thing.
We've seen the Force Ghost thing, but not an actual person coming back and being in live form. And
so you're really talking more resurrection.
Yeah. Or even reincarnation in the sense of, because there's been a lot of talk about Palpatine being reincarnated into another body.
Yeah.
So
there was even people that thought that maybe, he was Snoke, right?
Yeah.
That Palpatine came back or something, which really never made sense to me because...
No.
Unless, of course, he was lying. Remember how he said that, I've been around since the Empire or whatever? It's like, well, if he was Palpatine, that would be true.
True. But I think a lot of people are, because there's this whole rumor and there's this thing going out about Palpatine, I guess, putting his spirit, because, as we know, a lot of times, and on the dark side, they have these Force witches and dark side witches and all this type of stuff where they can actually...
Dathomir.
Yep. So they can put their... I don't want to say their essence because that just sounds...
Yeah, I know. That does sound a little...
Austin Powers.
Yeah.
Like,
it's not mine, really.
I don't want to hear about, the Palpatine's mojo.
Yeah,
but
Palpatine's essence. Well, he did put his essence apparently into Shmi because he was the one that was responsible, apparently.
Strong with the dark side is.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on. But I really think that, Star Wars isn't really ready for that. I don't think that's really it would be cool as a new force power, I guess, or a new trick, but it's just kind of like...
The problem that I'm seeing with where Star Wars... Because this is actually an extension of what we were talking about as far as, the whole Force Ghost conversation we had a few weeks back, where I think the reason why a lot of fans are basically having issues with a lot of this stuff is because we've lived with the original trilogy for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you had the prequels. But the prequels really, I mean, I guess there was a couple of adaptations and modifications of Force powers, but nothing that was, really outside. If anything, it tried to explain how Force Ghosts came to be and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that I think that because everybody's lived with all this stuff for so long, and within the span of just a few movies, they're trying to hit us with all this different new stuff very quickly. And I think that people are just having a hard time getting their bearings.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of different things. Like, I mean, within the last two movies, Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, I mean, we've seen some new Force powers, or at least stronger, or some stronger versions of the ones we already come to know. And on one hand, you want to see them push the envelope and give us something. And that's the thing is, like, when with Rian Johnson, like, he pushed the envelope, and then some people felt like he pushed too far or too much too quickly.
That's real. I think honestly, I think it's more the latter. Now, I think people might have forgiven that if they thought the story was better, or even if it was the same story. If they had just, here's the thing. I honestly think that everybody would have been praising The Last Jedi if they had done with Luke what everybody expected them to do.
True.
Ignite the green, go kick some, well, I was going to say Sith butt, but really,
right.
Just basically go take care of somebody. Or like if he had fought the Knights of Ren, or if he had just, or like in that last scene, if that really was him, and the entire Empire just or First Order just unleashed on him,
and he just
was able to repel it all, and then just like with a wipe of a hand, you saw like Skywalkers and AT-ATs just like fly across the little desert, that open space or whatever. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like if you had seen that, I think people would have been, of course, there would have been people that would have been like, oh, really? Because, by the same token, and there was a lot of fans that actually had issues with the fact that in the novels, in Legends, the old expanded universe, that, Luke was too godlike.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. I think that people just really, it was almost like a too much too quickly.
Yeah, I mean,
more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I think it, and then also I think that people just, if you're only basing your knowledge of Star Wars on the movies, then I can see that also, because if you don't watch even the animated series, because then you would know about like the Witches of Dathomir and
you got to remember that they were a Legends thing too, though, and this is where I think you bring up a good point, is the fact that there was a lot of things that were because remember, the old expanded universe, which is now Legends, went on for a long time. Mm-hmm. Basically they went on, so like from 1991 all the way to 2012. There's a lot of books that were released, and don't forget the comics and all that too, right? Mm-hmm. So there's all this lore that's basically been created. But I think even more than that, what ended up happening was the fact that the Force and its powers, I think if people just had some rules, some parameters, they can operate. But it almost seems like it's so open-ended now that they could just introduce anything. Well, like, oh, look, Luke or Rey or whoever could do this now.
Well, yeah, you know what? And I'm not necessarily opposed to it, because, and we'll, talk about this probably in some other subsequent time, but we don't know what happened in the Old Republic.
That's true.
And, you got to think about it from this perspective of, okay, the time in which we all came to love Star Wars, there were no Jedi. I mean, you had two Sith Lords running the galaxy, and you had this farm boy who just discovered his power and ability. His master dies. He goes study from this other grandmaster who's on his deathbed, basically. And, he's taken those lessons, and then kind of, with the will of the Force, was able to defeat the two Sith Lords. Okay. So then after that, then what happens? There's no more Jedi, except for him. Well, except for the ones he kind of trained after that. And then,
which, of course, we still don't really know the backstory behind all that, because they haven't revealed it to us yet.
Exactly. And then, of course, at that time, there weren't any Sith. You know, even now, like with Kylo, he's not technically a Sith either. So then we go back to the prequels. Okay, the Jedi were kind of on top of the game. They didn't even know the Sith were believed to be extinct for a millennium. So they really had no one to really go against until Palpatine really decided to show his face. And I look at things like, okay, well, in the Jedi and the Sith heyday, that's where we probably would see the most of the Force abilities, because that's
a good point.
So what happens if like, they stumbled upon these things and now they're just like the Force awakens? Now these things are
they're
kind of
discovering
coming back.
them because, you know, who knows? Maybe this was a common thing. Like maybe even Padawans could do it way back in the day, right? But, you know, it's certainly a big deal.
Right.
Like who knows? You know, I mean, but I think part of it is too that because of the whole prophecy of the chosen one, they set up Anakin and primarily Luke to be like these really special cases, right? Born of the Force. Prodigies. So even if there's a lot of things that we haven't seen because maybe Luke hasn't run into them, it's almost like they're still the ones with the most potential. So they're still the ones that would introduce any new powers.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, so, and it can go either way, really.
Yeah, but I also kind of look at, you know, like I said, if there's things that are, if you haven't evolved to yet, just because there's not a need for it.
Well, yeah, it's like strength, right? I mean, at one point, people thought, well, this is the strongest any human could be. And then, thanks to the magic of steroids, you know, I mean, people found out like, oh, you can really get a lot stronger than we ever thought, you know, and the same could be said for Jedi or Sith.
Yeah, I mean, and quite frankly, it's like, okay, well, at the time, like I kind of liken it to, you know, once again, like somebody like Bruce Lee. Like, okay, he died at a very young age. We don't know what a 50-year-old Bruce Lee would have looked like.
That's true.
You know, we saw how great he was in his 20s and his 30s, and that was just amazing. But just imagine if he had like 20 more years to perfect even what he's already had, or even learn even more techniques.
50-year-old Bruce Lee's got like a beer gut laying on the couch, completely out of shape.
You mean Seagal? I mean, anyway. Sorry. But,
Van Damme you.
Van Damme. But, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you just kind of don't know the potential because things or events have not occurred to where it challenges those.
Well, but again, though, here's and bringing it back to the issue of reincarnation, which, you know, is definitely peppered throughout. At least the possibilities exist. I think that if there is and it doesn't mean that everything has to be revealed, right? It's just that there's a parameter in this universe, so that way you can, you know, it's almost like there's a path to this. So it just doesn't seem like what I think a lot of fans, and sometimes I admit I've even thought this too, where it's like, are these guys just like in a room going, you know, it would be cool? What if, you know, Luke could do like this or whatever? And it's like, it's not really based on the story. It's more based like what would dazzle an audience. True.
But also I think that, you know, who are we to put limitations on what the Force is? I mean, what the Force can do. You know what I mean? Like, we put those parameters on it, but like...
Well, I'm not talking about necessarily us as in the fans. I'm talking about the writers. You know, because actually, if you think about it, Lucas has actually put a lot of parameters on things that they decided not to follow. Like, for instance, the midi-chlorians being the prime example of that. You know, he wanted a more scientific... In fact, if you remember, his ideas for 7, 8, 9 would have even gone deeper into the scientific route.
Yeah.
That's his vision.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you can almost say, well, this is his world.
True.
So, really...
But he's the father of it all. Like, he can say what he wants.
It's really like, if he says that, then that should be it. You know, I mean, it's almost in a situation where all these wonderful directors and writers and stuff that Disney might have, it's really expensive fan fiction if you compare it to Lucas.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, Disney has decided to canonize things that, you know, basically that Lucas has done, but there's a lot of things that they decided to throw out, and the midi-chlorians being one of them.
So do you think you're ready for reincarnation or resurrection in Star Wars?
I could definitely deal with either or, simply because I don't really think that we're that far. Look, if I could deal with the fact that, Palpatine can pretty much do this like miraculous impregnation and actually use the Force to conceive a child within a woman, yeah, those other things aren't really too much of a stretch. Not to mention the fact that the Force Ghost thing, as we learn in 8, is getting more and more like resurrection to me. Because now they're starting to take more of a physical form.
They're able to affect reality.
Yeah, they're able to affect reality. They're able to manipulate, actual physical things now. I mean, really, it's like they kind of are resurrected in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, and then there's the whole Leia thing. Like, I still say the whole Leia getting sucked out into space, and then, of course, like, first of all, being able to survive, period.
Exactly.
And then, two, being very Mary Poppins and flying back into the whole ship.
Absolutely.
It's just kind of like, okay, like, how do you really explain that?
And that's it right there. It's kind of like they're already really widening what the Force can do and what people who use the Force can do.
All right. Well, what do you guys think, though? I really love to hear what everyone else thinks about, if you're ready for the reincarnation or the resurrection in Star Wars, because, it seems like it's here, and, people are thinking that Snoke might come back. So it's a possibility that we all kind of have to consider at this point.
Yeah, let us know on Twitter or Facebook at HeadToHeadSW. Love to hear you guys' thoughts. Oh, and while I'm at it, since we're doing a little bit of a plug, we have a new blog. So far, one blog post has been written where we talk about the future of Star Wars. But you can find that on our website, headtoheadswpodcast.com. Make sure you guys check that out and leave a comment. Let us know what you guys think. Because remember, in addition to us being a discussion-oriented show, as far as Daryl and I, we really want to expand that and create a community of Star Wars fans, a safe haven, if you will, where you can actually discuss this stuff and not worry about, being shredded for your opinion because it may differ from somebody else. So let us know. All right, what do we got?
All right, man. So Oscar Isaac, our favorite hotshot pilot, has
Poe Dameron.
Mr. Poe Dameron himself, yes. He was on a couple of late night talk shows talking about episode 9. He says that 9 is actually going to be better than 7 and 8.
Well, to a lot of fans, that wouldn't really be too difficult.
And then also,
I think he said we were going to be really excited about it, though, right?
He said we're definitely going to be excited, but he also mentioned that it's probably going to be better than 7 and 8. Just, I guess, given based on what the story is for.
Yeah, I remember him saying something about the fact that, that it was going to, I think it's going to wrap a lot of things up, and that we were going to be really, really satisfied with the way this whole thing concludes.
Yeah, and then he also talked a lot about his relationship with Carrie Fisher, the late Carrie Fisher, his time with her doing 7 and 8, and then how they're actually handling it for 9, because as we all know, they're including a lot of footage that they shot together between those other 2 movies.
Yeah, I'm really curious about that. To be honest, I can't even begin to imagine. That's actually, when people ask me what I'm looking forward to most about episode 9, one of the things is definitely how are they gonna do this?
Yeah.
With existing footage. Like, I can understand that they were just gonna like write her out or say, oh, she's off on a mission somewhere, or maybe have a scene or 2 and then have her die or whatever. But it's like, they're talking about how they're reusing all this footage from 7 and 8, and it's gonna be interactive, and it's gonna feel natural. So I'm really curious about that.
Yeah, I'm really the same as you. I'm really curious about it, and I would just love to see. And he says everything kind of fits perfectly.
Yeah,
how it comes in, and then he's also making it seem like I'm thinking there's going to be maybe a couple of scenes, maybe 2 or 3 scenes or something. But apparently she's kind of prominent in this movie.
I mean, that's what the thing that really shocked me was the fact that he's talking about how almost like what was intended had she, lived. Carrie Fisher, of course. Mm-hmm. This would have been her movie. And in a way, from what Oscar says, it almost sounds like it still is, which I'm actually glad about because I really didn't want to go through, the rest of my life, really. And let's face it, because Star Wars is a big deal to us, I probably would have definitely gone through the rest of my life, as pathetic as that may sound, wondering what would have happened, what movie would we have gotten if she were alive?
Yeah.
Had she lived, what movie would we have gotten? And I think what's awesome is that a lot of that is diminished because it sounds like they're going to still be able to do not exactly what they would have done, but something pretty close that will make the fans satisfied.
Yeah, I mean, I think that JJ, from the sounds of it, is really, knocking the ball out of the park with this one. And then even Oscar mentioned the fact that his last day of shooting was also the last day Anthony Daniels finished up. And Anthony Daniels is the actor who plays our favorite golden translator, C-3PO. So I think that in itself is another kind of a bittersweet moment because, this is going to be like the last of 3PO from what they're saying.
Well, maybe. From
what he's saying. I mean, and that's kind of what I want to get into.
The way that tweet that he put out.
Yeah.
It just sounded like they were talking about the last in the movie. I don't know. I don't actually think that we could. I mean, they've really shoehorned him into a lot of stuff they didn't even have to, just because it's almost as if everybody knows that Anthony Daniels has basically been in every Star Wars related thing, and they just want to keep that going. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it,
he's like the common thread that's always.
Yeah, he's kind of like the common thread, and I'm strangely okay, even though, it doesn't serve the story, and it's like an obvious fan service thing. It's the one time that I would make the exception where I am totally okay with that, completely. But what about you guys? I mean, are you guys really excited for episode? I hope you're excited for episode 9.
You better be.
Better be. Or you better fake it really well at Celebration. Let us know at Head to Head SW, Facebook, Twitter. Oh, we have an Instagram. We are at Head to Head SW. It's hilarious.
Pictures.
Like all this stuff is like actually occurring to me. You'd think I would study this stuff before doing the podcast. But yes, we have an Instagram now, and we are starting to post photos. And share your photos with us as well.
Yeah, especially if you all are going to Celebration.
Yeah, especially if you're going to Celebration, because
please, I'd love to see the cosplay, and of course, there's the awesome pictures that are going to be at your disposal when you actually get to walk into those venues and actually see memorabilia. I mean,
I remember how it felt when we just walked into the Power of Costume.
Yeah, that was just amazing.
I mean, that was just an incredible experience. Can you imagine what it would be like to walk on the convention floor of Star Wars Celebration?
Absolutely. It's coming, man. Don't worry about it.
All right. What do we got next? I'll stop whining.
Well, next we have the Skywalkers. So I kind of wanted to talk about Star Wars in general. Like, the Star Wars saga, is it really about the Skywalkers?
Well, the saga is.
Because some people say there's not. Some
people are wrong. Some people say The Last Jedi was a totally terrible movie.
Well, from a certain point of view. But I think a lot of people are talking about the fact that, it's the whole fate of the galaxy in itself, and the Skywalkers just happen to be a part of it.
The part of it, they're like the central. You could argue that because of Anakin's decision, he's arguably the cause of it. You got to remember, and once again, it's a Lucas thing. The whole idea was to chronicle the saga. A saga is a story. Mm-hmm. This is the story of the Skywalkers. That doesn't mean that Star Wars is only about the the Skywalkers, because obviously we do get other character stories in there. And as more movies are made, especially more standalone films, we're definitely going to look beyond the lens of the Skywalker family. But if you're talking about episode 1 through 9, I can't imagine anybody saying that that's not about the Skywalkers. Yeah, it's about the fate of the galaxy, only because the Skywalkers were very key players in that.
Well, yeah, I mean, they were very key players, but it's kind of like if you took Anakin Skywalker out of the equation, would Star Wars still would have happened with Palpatine? And you probably could still say yes.
Yeah, I mean, he could have arguably... I mean, let's face it, he started his plan with Maul and then Dooku, right? But again,
I mean, granted,
the lens, you got to remember that with these movies, right, it's really more like we're seeing it through the eyes of the droids. That was the original intent. But the idea is what it's about, because you could say that about any film. You could say, is Jaws really about the Brodies? And the answer is yes, because that's the family that we're focused on. And all the events it's basically focusing on their story. It's just like you and I, right? We're living our lives in this world. Now, the whole world's not about us, but if a documentary crew started following you around, well, then that story would be about you. Sure, there's events that are happening, but this is how those events are affecting you or how events are being caused by you. And that's kind of how the Skywalker thing is.
Well, because it's called Star Wars. And
this is almost like Duel of the Fates.
Yeah, I know.
You really should have put this on the Duel of the Fates.
But it's called Star Wars. And so the whole thing is basically the politics of the galaxy. And it just happens that the Skywalkers find themselves enveloped.
But that's not the story that's being told. I mean, I agree that it's not just, dinner with the Skywalkers and we're just sort of like following their lives, right? It's, they're obviously part of a bigger machine and stuff like that. But I mean, the whole idea is when you look at episode 1, you could argue that, okay, look at all this stuff that happened before we even meet Anakin. And he's sort of there. But the point is they keep focusing on him. They keep focusing on Luke. They keep focusing on Leia. I mean, you can argue that actually half of the cast of the original trilogy are Skywalkers.
Luke, Vader, and Leia.
Luke, Vader, Leia. Then you have Kylo.
Well, he comes in the sequel.
Who's also related to Han. And yeah, I mean, it's like the sequel trilogy, but still, who knows?
What?
I mean, it's, and then it's one
I'm
of
just
those
playing
things.
devil's advocate right now.
Well, it's basically,
it's
it's basically like, it's not so much that the universe is like, if you took the Skywalkers out, the whole universe wouldn't exist. You could tell stories without the Skywalkers.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have the Mandalorian. I mean, that's going to be...
Well, and technically you have Solo.
Yeah.
Solo wasn't. I mean, Rogue One almost wasn't.
If you left out.
But they had to put Vader in there.
And Leia.
Skywalker sells, man. But I mean, that's the thing, is the idea is that we're looking at this universe through the experiences and through the lives of this particular family and how they're either affecting the world around them or how the world is affecting them and, in a way, influencing their decisions. But, and this is where I almost play some devil's advocate here. That's why I was really specific about, at the beginning of this discussion. It's because, like, if you're talking about the saga episode films, 1 through 8, almost forgot, like, how many episodes there were.
Yeah.
So 1 through 8, without question. But see, you start getting into these standalone films. I mean, Solo wasn't about the Skywalkers.
No. But I mean, I think the what everybody's talking about, just the core of it all was just,
well, and I mean,
we're looking at it.
Well, that's the thing, though. It's like, I think that what people are trying to say is, because everybody seems to be, like all the producers, writers, or whatever, they're trying to shoehorn Skywalkers into every Star Wars film. I think where that question actually came to be is because people are like, look, I think we can have Star Wars without Skywalkers.
Right.
And I think that's where the question's born from. Well, wait, can we? You know, do you really need a Skywalker in there? And I think the problem is familiarity. I mean, everybody just, it's what everybody knows because the whole saga is about their story, their lineage. You want to see what's going on with them. Like, okay, if you do a movie that's like 20 years after whatever episode 9 is called, okay, you could have like a whole new cast, but everybody's going to be in the back of their mind going, I wonder what one of the Skywalker guys, like, who's around now?
Or is this person related to a Skywalker?
Yeah, right. Exactly. You know, they're kind of powerful. Maybe we ought to check their birth certificate, see if they're, you know, related to a Skywalker. And that's where perhaps the episodic films, in a way, painted themselves into a corner. But let's not forget, Lucas's intention originally was 12 and then 9. And that's it. You know, he wasn't trying to, like, make Star Wars go forever. He wasn't even trying to do, like, books and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he just had this one thing. But what happened was, while he was telling the story of this family, he created this, like, vast, rich, wonderful universe. You know, I mean, they were even talking about, the other day, I was reading some things about IG-88 on The Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot, they actually announced a person who we think is playing an IG droid, but we don't know if it's actually IG-88 or not.
Right.
And I'm drawing a blank on the actor's name, but...
It was Alan?
No, it's not Tudyk.
No, not him. It was someone else. Yeah, I know you're talking about that.
It is someone else.
Well...
But I mean, it was whoever it was, though. They were more known for being like a comedic, like they could do drama, but they also make things like somewhat funny.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I remember thinking like, man, I'm really excited about the idea of IG-88, actual IG-88 being in any kind of a live action Star Wars thing.
Right.
Whether it's a movie or a TV show. And the idea behind that is like, yeah, you know, I'd be just as excited over that as if they had actually made Jason Solo from the novels like canon. You know, he's kind of like Kylo in a way. But you can definitely have stuff without that. You know, it's just that Lucas, he creates all these really cool things, and then, you know, he was going to end it, and then everybody really started crying about it, and then Disney forked over $4 billion and said, guess what? We're going to continue. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Think it's about the Skywalkers?
Yeah, it could be the Skywalkers. It could just be politics and just what's going on in the galaxy. But definitely let us know. Hit us up on Head to Head SW and leave your comments and let us know.
That's Facebook, Twitter, and now Instagram. So now post a picture and leave your comments.
Yes.
All right, what do we got? You know the segment.
Well, about to finish up this last little drink here.
Oh, yeah, right. You're always slow in finishing up the drinks.
Well,
I'm trying to savor it.
Exactly. It's the only time I babysit.
Man, we are getting so close to dad joke humor in these things.
And neither one of us are dads. That's hilarious.
I know. This was so great. I guess it's an age thing.
But all right. I'm all wrapped up.
All right. What do we got?
Next, we have Duel of the Fates. All right, man. So today for Duel of the Fates, or this week I should say, Darth Maul versus Asajj Ventress. Who's the better apprentice?
All right. Now you know what I'm gonna say. I'm always asking these. It's almost like further clarification.
Yes, Mr. Technicality.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, but you know, you got to adequately do this, right? Or you know, the fan base or anybody really, friends, family, will tear you up, right? So when you're saying like, who's the better apprentice?
To Lord Sidious, to Palpatine.
Okay, so it's basically,
well, not
like
Palpatine, but I guess the better apprentice as far as skill set.
Okay.
They both were assassins.
Yeah.
So,
oh yeah, I mean they're definitely very similar, but
they just had two different masters. One was
well. So here's
sorta.
the thing. I mean, yeah, are you going by though? I mean, I know this is like, it's like, really, dude? Do you really need all this? But I mean, I'm just trying to parameters. Remember, always trying to get the parameters. Okay, no. Here's the thing. Here we go.
This is what I deal with people.
Yeah, right. So what I'm trying to figure out is like, are you talking about like who's like the most skilled, or just like if you were to rank them, or who is actually a better apprentice for him? Because, you know, skill's only part of that. I mean, what were you thinking when you actually, you're like, I wasn't thinking this much.
It's like George Lucas. Look, people, it's a movie. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I did notice that you didn't say who was your favorite. So I'm eliminating that.
Right.
Although I will tell you that my favorite apprentice probably is the best. I'm going to go with Asajj Ventress.
Okay.
Easily, by the way.
Okay.
Like, easily.
Ooh. All right.
I'm baiting him. I'm...
Watch your tone, sir.
That's right. Exactly.
But, okay, well, why do you say Asajj Ventress?
Because if you, first of all, I mean, you can go, like, if you want to just go for who trained who,
mm-hmm.
you can almost say that there's a little bit of a draw there, because basically, you know, it was on Dathomir that Maul was trained, and, you know, I mean, they're pretty cunning warriors.
Mm-hmm.
Dooku was the one that trained Ventress, but Ventress also learned a bunch of other stuff too from, this is where it gets a little fuzzy, but I remember she also comes from this like warrior race.
Mm-hmm.
But Dooku, of course, added this whole nother level of training to that. And then, of course, it's weird because I don't even know if I really consider Ventress to be Sidious's apprentice or not, because from everything that we've seen in canon, I'm talking about,
Okay.
Sidious never really dealt with her. She was almost like Dooku's person. So Dooku was Sidious's apprentice, and then it's kind of like, okay, you can go and take your apprentice or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, but I mean, if you're just comparing the two, as far as like who is the better apprentice to their subsequent masters, I still say Ventress because she's just so good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's face it. You know, Obi-Wan basically beat Maul easily twice. And if you really look at the history of Maul and everything, like, he's okay. I would actually say, and here's the thing that I think that it might surprise a lot of people to learn, Maul's actually a little bit more powerful in the Force than what people give him credit for. Everybody just like dismisses him as this acrobatic
minion.
Yeah. But he actually was quite formidable as far as a pure Force user.
Mm-hmm.
So he's kind of underrated in that area. But Ventress, especially if you read a lot of the canon novels, especially like Dark Disciple, she's just way more powerful. She just outclasses him.
Well, I'm going to challenge you on this.
Of course. Look, I get it. Maul looks cool.
No,
all right?
no, it has nothing to do with...
I mean, I get it. You know, when you were a little kid, you saw Maul for the first time.
I understand Asajj Ventress is attractive to you. I understand. But listen. Here, ladies and gentlemen, here are the facts.
She kind of is. I'm not going to lie.
Got that ball thing. I got it. But I think, honestly... I think that Maul is more powerful and a better apprentice simply because he was actually more loyal. He was very cunning. Not saying that Asajj wasn't, but...
Oh, yeah, she was pretty loyal.
But I think the biggest thing is that the fact that Maul actually attained the rank of Sith Lord. Asajj could never attain that rank. And I know some people might say, well, because you can only have two because...
No, I'm not even going to say that. I mean, although that is a good point, actually. she couldn't achieve that simply because it wasn't like she didn't have the skill to do it, but, you know, well, I guess it does factor into that too thing, but like Dooku would never, you know, Dooku was basically using her, and this is the other thing that you have to look at too. You may have forgotten this, but she almost beat him.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way that Maul would beat Dooku.
I don't know, because I'm thinking from the standpoint of, okay, Dooku was a formidable Jedi before he left and went to the dark side.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, those are the facts. And then, you know, he started training in the dark side with Palpatine. And then, of course, he went and got Ventress. But Maul was Palpatine's guy from the get-go. I mean, so I think that Palpatine, his force, I mean, his ability, his cunningness, all that stuff sitting up
He
under
was available.
But he's sitting up under.
He was before Dooku.
Yeah, but he's sitting up under Palpatine the whole time.
How about on the duel thing, right?
Okay.
So he takes on Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan.
Okay.
A master who's a little bit past his prime.
Okay.
And a Padawan.
Mm-hmm.
He basically loses the fight. Whereas Dooku, on the other hand, takes on both Anakin and Obi-Wan. Anakin being a little reckless, not quite at his prime in the dark side, because that's the only way that he beat him in Episode 3 was that he channeled the dark side, and because he was really strong, he was able to... But both fights in Episode 2 and 3, Dooku actually beat them both in 2, and he eventually lost to Anakin, but he still took on two guys that were, you know, more powerful.
Okay, well, if you look,
and she almost beat Dooku.
But if you're looking at it from the dual side, okay, so we have Darth Maul goes up against Anakin and Obi-Wan. Anakin and Obi-Wan. He goes against Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. Qui-Gon being a master swordsman, trained under Dooku, okay, kills him. Then Obi-Wan, still a formidable opponent, he actually really beat Obi-Wan. It's just the fact that Obi-Wan got clever and just surprised Darth Maul. Darth Maul just got arrogant. That's all it was. But it's not like, if you really look at the fight,
but I mean,
Darth Maul beat him.
Ventress actually in the Clone Wars, she took on Anakin and Ahsoka.
Ahsoka's 12.
Not by the end, not in season 5. She's pretty powerful by then.
I mean, yeah, but
again, she took on Dooku. And she took on Quinlan Vos. And she took on Mace. If you had that's why you got to read Dark Disciple, man.
But
I'm telling you, she's like,
I'm not saying that Asajj wasn't. I mean, that's why I thought these two would be a great pairing, because they both had the same.
Well, they did get us out of our little love fest that we've had for the last
exactly.
3, 4,
spice it
12.
Up.
Yeah, I guess so.
What better way to bring it to the dark side? But
look, even Ventress rhymes with apprentice.
See,
I mean, there.
Okay, now we're doing rhymes. But no, I think that if you look at Maul, I mean, I think the only reason why Obi-Wan beat Maul once again is just because of his just pure anger. It just got in the way, and Obi-Wan had gotten to a point where he became really, really powerful that, you know, he really didn't need. I mean, he was able to outbest Maul just simply because he was in a different place. But honestly, I think, you know, Asajj is.
She also maintained, you know, because
I think she's a better fighter than Maul when it comes to dueling. She may have the edge.
I mean,
But I think force ability, and I think the edge just goes to Maul.
That's what I'm saying. You'd actually have to read and rewatch a lot of different things that Asajj, because that's the thing. That's one of the reasons why this was a really good matchup, because you at least have the movies for Maul, and of course Rebels.
Right.
You do have the Clone Wars. That's mostly where you find Asajj, and then you find, you know, a couple of the canon novels, particularly Dark Disciple. But Dark Disciple was basically based on a an unproduced Clone Wars script. Right. So I mean, it was in there, but I mean, she's just like ridiculously powerful on the dark side, like her Force abilities. But I will say this though, like her loyalty is really there, but I think that Maul probably was more loyal because you could do more to him and he'll remain loyal, where I think Asajj, eventually pretty much like what happened.
Yeah, she eventually wound up going to the light a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, part of it
started helping the Jedi in a lot of cases.
Yeah, well, and that's because Dooku betrayed her, basically.
Right.
So it's kind of like, and if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong about this one, but I think that one of the things that ultimately happened was Palpatine was just all like, listen, there can only be two of you. Mm-hmm. It's me and one other person. So either she takes you out or you take her out. Mm-hmm. One of the two. Yeah. She's got to go. Mm-hmm. So he's like, fine. And that's when he went to kill her. So, I mean, that's really the gist of it. What about you guys?
Yeah.
Now, I'm really curious to hear. Come on, Kazi. I know you've got thoughts about this one, man. That guy, Dave's been asking a bunch of questions, actually.
Yeah, Chris, I know you're out there too.
Yep, you're out there. Come Patrick.
Yep.
Patrick. I know Patrick McIntosh. He's out there. I know you got some thoughts. You listen to us every Monday. What do you guys think? Let us know at head-to-head SW on Facebook or Twitter or now Instagram. And, we really want to hear from you guys. All right. Well, I guess it's time for our next topic. Our feature presentation, actually.
Yes, sir. It's from a certain point of view.
It's kind of a cryptic little topic we got going.
Exactly. And it's, will everyone die in episode 9?
Okay, I don't want to be that guy for every segment, but when you say, will everyone die, are we talking like some crazy genocidal, like...
I'm getting a t-shirt with you on it. It's like, when you say...
Hey, we could use our affiliate link and sell that.
There you go.
I don't know. I mean, so are you talking about main characters?
Yeah,
you're saying like everyone.
Yeah, I mean like Bray, Poe, the whole shot, like Finn.
Well, no, I don't think everyone's gonna die. I mean, first of all, I can't go by that now. I was gonna say that Kathleen Kennedy had announced a bunch of, all these people are gonna go on and have different stories, but then when Solo failed, that sort of put a little bit of a
damper on that.
Yeah, a little damper on that. So we don't really know. I don't think they're all gonna die. I do think Kylo will probably die. It's possible that Finn may die.
I don't know. I mean, I really think that, because I guess you have to wonder, like, the reason why I asked this question, because after 9, if they decide to not do any more saga films, then however 9 wraps up, this is going to be it.
Yeah.
But if they choose to do, another saga film or whatnot, and we're trying to get further away from the Skywalker thing and just all that. So are they going to just kind of give us brand new characters, and this is like going to be like the last ditch for the galaxy, and everybody's just going to go all in, and that's it?
Well, but they don't have to all die for that, though. Because think about this, right?
No.
After Return of the Jedi, there were not supposed to be any more saga films. I mean, sure, he was planning on making the prequels, but as far as afterwards, he wasn't going to do it. So everybody was fine. In fact, everybody was happy. They had the Yub Nub song, and in the original anyway.
Right.
So, I mean, it's one of those, but I see what you're getting at. And what I think is that you could do one of two things. If you never did another saga film, you could just have it to where, these characters are existing and we don't follow them anymore. Right. Follow a different set.
Well, again, I guess because if they make any more movies, like if you make any more movies that take place on the timeline after 9, is what I'm like, then it's like, okay, well, if you're going to keep certain people alive, then cool. Are they going to pop up? Or
there's a science fiction, a couple of movies that I watched recently on Netflix. Skyline. So the movie Skyline was made in 2010, and then they made another movie called Beyond Skyline 2 years ago in 2017. So basically, they took it from the standpoint of there was a alien invasion, and there was a group of people that were stuck in this apartment building, and pretty much it showed how they were trying to, get out and escape, and, it had kind of a dark ending. I actually recommend it. If you guys haven't seen Skyline, it was a really good movie that did not go the way that you would think it would go. It wasn't a typical...
All right, Luke.
Right? This isn't going to... But it was really good. But the reason why I'm bringing these movies up is because Beyond Skyline actually takes place at the same time as the original one. It just follows a different set of people. Now, it's true, they do eventually run into one of the people from the first one. But the point is that had that not happened, they could have just stuck with these other characters. Okay, it's the same timeline. It's just you follow somebody else. I mean, let's face it, Lost Stars does that. And hey, I'll actually leave a link to some of these novels that we're talking about in our show notes, because we do have that Amazon affiliate link, and it does help support this podcast. So if you guys would be so kind as to make these purchases by using that link, that would be really, really cool of you. So, in the book Lost Stars, right, by Claudia Gray, same thing. It follows these characters. It's taking place during the same timeline as the original. Well, actually, it goes all the way back to episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Goes beyond Return of the Jedi. But the point is, you could tell a very compelling story with completely different characters in the same exact timeline. So they could do that even if they want to do something like that takes place after episode 9. You don't always have to follow the same group of people. And I think that goes back to what you were talking about, when you said, let's open up the universe a little. It's like you got this entire galaxy. These aren't the only 4 or 5 people in it.
Right.
There's a lot of planets. There's a lot of, like, what's going on Hoth right now? What's been going on Hoth since the, Empire Strikes Back?
Cold.
I don't know. That might not be the greatest example, because I don't know if I'd want to see an entire movie on Hoth. But the point is, it's an entire planet. Sometimes, and I brought this up on one of the other podcasts too, is that we get so caught up in, we want to see a different planet. It's like, there's a lot of things that go on this planet, and we make movies about that, and they're completely different movies, and some are even in the same time period.
Yeah, how many movies have we made about Mars?
Right. It's kind of like, okay, there's been a lot of movies that have been World War II movies. Mm-hmm. Okay, same time period, same war, completely different characters, completely different movies. Mm-hmm. They could do that with Star Wars. That's all I'm saying. So I don't necessarily think that everyone has to die in order to add, and I think that's what you're getting at, is do you have to add finality to these characters in order for fans to accept moving on in that same timeline?
Yeah, like, are these the characters that are meant to, like, kind of end the whole Skywalker saga?
Right.
Or...
Well, and they might be ending the Skywalker saga, maybe. And this is where it becomes really tricky, too, because they realize now that there's a little bit of damage in that armor that was once Star Wars. It's not as infallible as it once was.
Right.
It kind of is, but now that you've had a little bit of missteps and a little bit of failures, you're seeing a situation now where it's like, man, I guess this isn't the invincible property we thought it was.
Well, yeah, you got different people at the helm, and of course, they've had some wins. Like I said, I think overall episode 7 was a win.
Oh, yeah.
And Rogue One.
Technically, episode 8 was a win box office.
Yeah, box office wise.
Just not,
fan reviews. Yeah. But I mean, like, people love 7, and then people loved Rogue One.
Oh, everybody, yeah.
Everybody and their brother loved Rogue One.
You know what? And I'm really glad that Rogue One was the first of the standalones, because at least that shows that, hey, you can make a standalone movie. If it's good, people will go see it.
Absolutely.
And look, there's nothing wrong with Solo. Solo was a great movie. It was fun. It was just unnecessary. Brought that up in the blog, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, and we do talk about the blog because basically we're talking about the future of Star Wars right now. So if you guys want a little bit more in-depth thoughts on that, read the blog. All right. Well, I think it's time for my favorite segment, and that is Clear Your Mind. All right. We have a couple of people. Hey, Kazi's one of the people that asked the question.
Yep. But we'll get to him in a moment.
Yeah, we'll get to Dave in a minute.
All right. This first question comes from Thomas Bostic. He asks, will Rey go on a search for missing Jedi Masters or try to rebuild the Jedi Order?
I don't know. It seems like Jedi Masters are just popping up all over the place, It's like, I don't really think you have to search it. No, but I know what Thomas means. It's like, was Luke really, truly the only Jedi? I mean, look, there's a lot of Jedi Masters that escaped Order 66 and just ran. Now, a lot of them abandoned the Force or just repressed it really good. How many of those are still around? How many Padawans, like Kanan, are still around? I mean, Ezra technically should be out there somewhere.
Yeah. And I think that would be a great, like, honestly, if they were to do like a brand new launch series, I think that would be cool. It's just almost like Rey trying to find like remnants of the past, remnants of the old Jedi to kind of help guide her. And,
well, I think she almost has to because, if you think about it, I mean, we know that the Luke Skywalker role, unless they surprise us, is going to be essentially a cameo. Right? Mark Hamill was only shooting for like a week or something. So it would seem to me that if you take the in-universe story, that you would have to do something like that. Like, I mean, if you're just like, okay, I'm going to be a Jedi. Yep, here you're kind of trained. You have some books. Okay, now what? You're the one that has to rebuild the whole order probably. Or you're going to be the only one. You just figure out that you have this enormous power. What are you going to do with it?
Right.
Seems like you would almost want to try to find, is there like anybody out there that knows more than me about this that I can go to? And
I wonder if Yoda will like pop up to her, because that would freak me out, because she's never met Yoda.
I know. And I've always wondered what would happen if like, some of these Force Ghost guys like popped up on people they never met. I mean, we did get a little bit of an instance of that with Yoda and Ezra in Rebels. But I remember somebody brought that up when, it was the Obi-Wan thing, where it's like, well, they never met Obi-Wan. See, I would have thought that it was cool if Obi-Wan, even though Yoda was the wise choice, if Obi-Wan had popped up, it would have been interesting seeing the Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan interacting with Mark Hamill. Because he's always interacted with Alec Guinness.
Right.
But yet everybody thinks of Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan now. Probably even more so than Alec Guinness at this point.
Yeah.
So it would be kind of weird because he's the one that everybody thinks of as Obi-Wan. But if he's interacting, I mean, even when, they had Luke Skywalker saying the name Lord Sidious or Darth Sidious, it was like a chill ran down my spine. It was like an original trilogy guy acknowledging a prequel thing.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't know. I think it would be cool. I think it would be awesome if she did. Even if she found some other Jedi Masters from like different races and things like that, just kind of going on that great American search for, if you will, for like these other Jedi Masters, just because, and they kind of
Galaxy's Got Jedi.
Right, it's a talent search. And basically, because, like that broom kid, is probably got to show up at some point,
Yeah, you got to wonder. I mean, I understand the whole story arc behind the decision to feature that, but the problem that I have with it is that even though it has this really nice thing about, hey, the Force doesn't just belong to one lineage or something like that, it's more common than what people think. Well, the problem is that's true. Then, yeah, I mean, where are all these people? It's like it's almost like, especially if you show like one kid, it would be different if you did like something similar to the end of Return of the Jedi, where you actually show a bunch of people using the Force abilities, just randomly. But it's like, if you're going to focus on this one kid that we actually focused on earlier, and now we find out he has the Force, it's like, well, where are you going with that? It almost seems like you gotta...
Yeah, explain that.
Yeah, explain that.
Well, I think what could happen is that, maybe once 9 and everything is over, like Rey kind of starts like probing the Force. Because, see, the thing is, you also have to ask that question, like, if this kid has the Force, 9 times out of 10, either the Force just selected this kid to have it, or it was passed down by a father or a mother.
Right. Well, and here's the thing, though, and this is what a lot of people, and I admit I forget this sometimes too, is that the Jedi Temple, so you got all those Jedi Masters, they would actually go out on these active searches all the time for kids that just had Force abilities.
Yeah.
Or were Force sensitive. And then just take it upon themselves to train them in the ways of the Jedi. So... it's not really a new concept for a bunch of people to have the Force. Well,
I think the only reason why it would be is simply because, let me take that back.
I know where you were about to go with that.
But
I was ready.
Yeah, I know. I think what it is that, because of the purge, you're thinking like, okay, well, they're all gone. But it's like, no, that's just a Jedi, but not people who are Force sensitive, like Maz Kanata, like anybody who has that sensitivity. It's just that they don't know.
Well, yes and no.
Because Jedi is a religion. It's more of a lifestyle, but having the Force is
the thing is, though, that part of Palpatine's edict was, if anybody was Force sensitive, eliminate them.
Right. So, because he didn't want anybody rising up who could possibly...
Right.
But
unless you want to train somebody, but...
Yeah. I mean, so I think that in some ways that if you stretch out with the Force and you're trying to find, like, okay... See, kids would be more apt to respond to something like that versus an adult,
Absolutely.
So the fact that you find a kid, and it's like, okay, well, who are your parents? And then you might find like, oh... Yeah, back in the old days, I was once a Jedi Master or a Jedi Knight. And
well, they may have been and they may not have been. I mean, because a lot of times, we saw even in the prequels that just because a kid showed Force potential didn't mean that they were going to take him. It's like, no, that little kid's a brat. We're not going to do, who knows what he'll be.
Well, they would check to see, the age. That's the biggest thing.
Well, yeah. But see, so let's just say...
And that broom kid is basically the same, probably about the same age as Anakin.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I'm just saying, though, that there's not everybody who had Force sensitivity was trained.
True.
Just like not everybody who uses the Force is a Jedi or Sith.
Right.
So, it could be that. And that's the other thing, too, is like it makes me wonder, is she going to search for people who are actual Jedi Masters that can help guide her or instruct her? Or is she just going to search for other people like her and they'll figure it out together?
I think it's maybe both. I think it
could be.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get to Kazi's question.
Dave. What's happening?
We really do miss working with him.
Yes. Dave Kazi asked, do you think Lando will ask for the Falcon? I'm assuming he's referring to in episode 9. Now that Han's gone,
and we see that he's on the Falcon too. I mean, we essentially got confirmation about that. So, I would say yeah. Why not? Yeah. It was his ship to begin with, and he really loved that ship and he hated losing it. Han's gone. I think as long as Han Solo were alive, he would never ask for it back.
Well, maybe, and he might have, depending on where he is in life, he might have just decided to let it go and let Rey have it.
Well, that's true, too. That is a good point.
I think Rey will probably need something to get around in, especially since she doesn't,
It's like a teenager getting her first car.
Exactly. And she knows so much about it already. I mean, like, she's already made modifications to it.
Well, the other thing you got to look
and
at
Chewie,
is Chewbacca.
Yeah, I was saying Chewie's
right.
still around. So.
And he seems to now, she's kind of like the new Han Solo for Chewie.
Mm-hmm.
He feels like
connected to her.
Yeah, so I mean, it almost seems like the way that they've established things, especially in 8, that they've continued on, that, she's sort of it's almost like that, I'm the captain now.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to definitely be cool to see Lando flying it again, or at least being in the ship again. Whether he asks for it back, he may do it as a joke, just being Lando. But I don't know if he's really going to take it back, because then it's kind of like, it's almost like we'll never see the Falcon. Yeah, exactly.
Is he really flying around on any kind of mission or something like that? I mean, it's...
Yeah, exactly.
And he kind of had it for a little bit in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
And then he gave it back.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, if anything, you'd think he would ask for it back then.
Yeah, true.
But, we'll have to see. I mean, that was a good question, Dave. Although his comment on our Facebook page was, did you end up reading that at all? His whole Snoke thing?
Yeah, his whole Snoke theory.
Yeah, that's going to warrant some discussion.
Yeah.
You might have to get that, maybe the next one. But that was a pretty big one. But hey, listen, if you want to join the likes of Dave and Patrick and all these wonderful guys that we got commenting on all our stuff and asking these great questions and initiating some really, really good discussion, hit us up at Head to Head SW on Twitter or Facebook. And, like I said, we're starting to offer a few products. We got some good deals on some things you can get. Use our Amazon affiliate link, help support us so we can afford to keep doing this for you guys. I think that's going to do it for our show today.
That wraps it up, my friend.
All right. Well, as usual, I'm Eric Vancil.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
May the Force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.